Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing good, and today I am here with a video series on Class 8 Science, Crop Production and Management. So in this video, we are going to talk about the entire process of crop production. We all eat fruits, vegetables, cereals and pulses in many different forms, and they get very easily available to us in the nearby markets. But where do they actually come from? They actually come from the fields in villages which are taken care by our farmers. So today our agenda in this video series is to understand how exactly this entire process of crop production take place. What are the different techniques which are used by farmers to ensure that they are able to produce high amount of crops to meet the demand of the population. So some of the topics that we will cover would include soil preparation, manures, fertilizers, traditional as well as modern methods of irrigation, harvesting, control of weeds and storage. So in short, we are going to cover everything that is there in your curriculum, and we will cover this entire lesson in 6 videos. Make sure that you watch the last video, that is the 6th video, where we will do a lot of practice questions. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started.
Agriculture is the practice of farming. And what do we mean by farming? Farming is nothing but taking care of plants to grow more and more crops. When I say crops, you might be thinking, what again is a crop? Well, when we talk about farming, in very simple words, what we mean is to farm or to grow fruits and vegetables and other eatables which can be eaten by human beings. For example, all of us are surviving, and for survival, one basic thing that we all need is food. And what do we eat in the form of food? Either fruits or vegetables or grains, for example, rice, wheat or pulses, something of that sort, or we depend on other animals. For example, we eat fish, meat, eggs, or some animal products like milk and other dairy products. So these are the food items which we normally eat, right? So in order to provide these food items to us, somebody needs to grow them. So that is what is called as agriculture. So agriculture would include cultivation of crops, where different types of crops will be cultivated. Now, a little later, we will talk about what is a crop. I mean, how exactly do we define a crop? So we will explain that a little later. Rearing of animals. Now, what do we mean by rearing? Rearing means taking care and bringing up animals for human benefit. Now, animals can benefit us in a lot of ways. For example, they can provide us milk which we can consume and which has a lot of nutrition. So, for example, cow, buffalo, goat, they all provide us milk. They can also provide us eggs. For example, if you think of chickens, so we also eat them, we also eat their eggs. So eggs, milk, meat, these are some of the animal products which are rich in many proteins or carbohydrates and thus are consumed by human beings. Now, if I want to drink milk coming out of a cow, so I also need to take care of that cow. So that is basically called rearing of animals, and all these things are taken care under animal husbandry. So what do we mean by animal husbandry? So this entire concept of taking care of animals, bringing them up for human benefit in the form of milk or eggs or meat. So that entire concept that entire process is known as animal husbandry. So we will discuss animal husbandry in detail later. So what I'm trying to say is, when we talk about agriculture is not only about growing fruits and vegetables, it also includes rearing of animals. I mean, basically agriculture talks about everything which we consume in the form of food. So agriculture is the practice of farming which grows everything which can be consumed by human beings in the form of food. So that is agriculture. Now the question is, our little friend wants to know, why do we cultivate crops or rear animals? I mean, how important is to have food? Basically, that is what he's trying to ask. So let us answer him. How important is agriculture? Now, just for a moment, think of anything that you eat. Now, if I tell that, okay, from today there is going to be no agriculture, we are not going to grow anything, you will not get any fruit, vegetable or milk, meat, anything available in the market. So you can start eating up the table, you can start eating up the chair. So do we eat all those stuffs? No, we don't. So what do we eat? So we eat either fruits or vegetables in some or the other form, either raw or cooked, or we eat animal products like meat, fish or egg, or maybe food grains, for example rice, wheat, corn, or even if your fast food, if you consider the pizzas and the burgers which you eat when you go out. So from what are they made up of? Even they in turn are made up of, what is your bread? Bread is nothing but made up of wheat. Again, if you talk about the juices, which the packed tinned juices which you drink, they are also derived from some of the fruits or the fruit's flavor. So directly or indirectly, they are all dependent on the basic fruits, vegetables or the cereals. Or your dairy products, again they are also obtained from animals. So whatever we eat or drink, or in fact the food items on the basis of which we are able to survive, so they all need to be produced at the same time. Now just think about it. We all eat fruits and vegetables and all these, some of these stuffs. Now do you think, for example, you eat one apple every day, or any other fruit or any other vegetable, whatever you eat every day. So from where do you get them? Your mom prepares them for you. But from where do you get the vegetables? Maybe from the vegetable market, right? So, but from where does these vegetables come to the vegetable market? Because we are not growing these fruits and vegetables at our home, right? I don't think a lot of us are doing that. That means somebody else is doing that for us. Now, if whoever is doing that for us, if he stops doing that, what's going to happen to us? We are not going to get any of these food items and we are actually going to starve. So that important is agriculture. So food is required for the survival of not only you and me, but of the entire population. So the entire population is dependent on food, and food is derived directly or indirectly from plants and animals. So now you can imagine how important is food for the entire human population, because this entire population of human beings, they eat food, the food gets digested inside their body, and then the food provides energy to each one of us to perform various activities. So if there is no food, we will not have energy to do anything, and gradually we will fall weak, and the human race will not be able to survive without food. Therefore, food production has to be there to fulfill the needs of the human population. And food production, the process of food production is basically taken care by agriculture. So that is where agriculture plays a very important role. So with this, I hope that I have been able to answer the question that why is agriculture or why is cultivation of crops so important. So our focus in this lesson is going to be on basically three things: food production, food storage, and food distribution. So now, are we all set to start learning about each of this? Yes, looks like everybody is ready now. So with this brief introduction on this lesson, we will first talk about food production. Now just now we talked about agriculture. Now you might be interested to know, how did agriculture evolve? How this entire concept of agriculture came into picture? So let us see how this concept of agriculture started. So if we look back into our history, we see that our ancestors, how did they get food? So there was no cultivation long time back. So how they used to obtain their food was primarily by hunting. So they used some man-made stone weapons which had sharp ends, and with that they killed other animals and ate them directly. I mean, there was no process of cutting them into pieces and then frying or roasting and using spices. So all those things were not there that time. So they directly used to hunt animals and feed on them. So that was one way they used to obtain food. Another way was eating fruits, so raw fruits. So these were some of the ways through which they obtained food for themselves, and that's how they survived. But with time, they learn to cultivate land and produce crops. And that is what we do today. So, over a period of time, so they gradually learned better things, better ways of growing crops. So thereafter came different crops like wheat, rice, etc. And that's how we have reached today, where we have a variety of fruits and vegetables and cereals, and they are all being cultivated by agriculture. So this is how the concept of agriculture started. So it was not that from the very initial days the concept was there, but gradually over a period of time people started learning things. So even if you see today, now also there are so many improvements which are continuously happening because the population is increasing very rapidly. So the crop production also needs to increase. So new techniques are coming with time, and better techniques, faster techniques, more efficient techniques have been put into place to make agriculture better, to increase the crop productivity. So that way this improvement is a continuous process and it keeps happening all the time. So this is how agriculture evolved. So now let us start understanding the three important steps, or the three important focus of ours in this lesson. So we are going to talk about crop yield, crop production, crop improvement. So everywhere you see a common word, and that is crop. So now our little friend might be curious to understand what exactly is a crop. So everywhere we find the word crop. So what is a crop? So crop is a plant that is grown on a large scale commercially. Now, if you have just one plant growing in your garden, so you do not say that I am cultivating a crop, because that is not called a crop. So the word crop is used only when the same plant is grown on a very large scale. What do we mean by large scale? That means large number of the same plant are being grown on a commercial scale. For example, in your house you might grow one tomato plant, because maybe you want to have tomatoes which are growing in your own garden. So you have just one tomato plant. So you will not say that I am cultivating tomato. That is not the right sentence, because crop is only used when multiple tomato plants are being grown for a commercial purpose. So maybe when hundreds and thousands of tomato plants are being grown on a field, maybe it can be said that okay, tomato crop is being cultivated in this field. So basically one plant will always be called a plant, but when you have hundreds of the same plant being grown for commercial purpose, because you see when you have thousands of tomato plant growing on a field like this, it is definitely not for the use of one family, it is for a huge mass of people. So it is a commercial production of tomato. So then it is called a crop. So I hope you understand what is a crop and when do we use the term crop. Now, just for your information, the part of the tomato which we eat, so this is what we eat, right? The red colored tomato. So what is that? That is nothing but the fruit of the tomato plant. So every plant will have fruit, they'll have flowers, right? So they are different parts of the plant. So the fruit of the plant, of this plant, is tomato, and tomato is something which is eaten by us. So we basically eat fruit of the tomato plant. So now we will talk about the different types of crops. There are many different types of crops which are being cultivated. For example, pulses also fall under the category of crop, like gram, pea, black gram, green gram, lentils. I'm sure you would have seen all these stored in the boxes inside your kitchen, because we eat all of them in different forms, maybe in the form of chole or maybe in the form of dal. So there are many different ways we eat each of these, but they all form pulses. We have cereals like wheat, rice, maize, millets. So these are all cereals. So here you can see some of the sample of these cereals. We again have some oil seeds. These oil seeds are also, they are a good source of proteins. For example, groundnut, castor, soya bean, sesame, linseed. Now why are they called oil seeds? Because these seeds are very rich in oil, and that is why oil is also extracted from these seeds. And that is how we get castor oil, we get the mustard oil, groundnut oil. So these all the oils or the refined oil. So many different types of oils are used for cooking purposes. So these oils are actually obtained from the seeds which are rich in oil, and these are examples of some of those seeds. Vegetables, a lot of vegetables are there which are again cultivated as part of crop. Fruits, apple, tomato, or if you talk about banana, pineapple, so they are all fruits. So a variety of fruits, vegetables, pulses, cereals, and oil seeds, they are all examples of crops. So they all fall under the category of crops when they are grown on a commercial scale. Now, there are many different cropping patterns also which are followed in India. Now, not only India, I am currently talking about India because I have taken India as an example, but then everywhere, based on the climatic conditions, crops are being grown. That's because different crops need different climate. So if we talk about India, here also we have different seasons. So if we talk about India, it has so many different seasons. For example, during the months of April to June, April, May, June, it is hot summer when there is too much of sunlight and it is very hot. Whereas this again is followed by monsoon, which we often call as rainy season, when too much of rain takes place, and this weather lasts from around July, September. So that is the time when we have monsoon. This monsoon in turn is again followed by winter, and the period between monsoon and winter is autumn. That is kind of the period after summer and before winter. That period when monsoon also takes place, that is called autumn, and it lasts almost till December, and then comes the winter season. So winter starts from December and then again it lasts till March, and again from April the summer season comes in. So that's how you have the weather. Like initially you will have summer from April to June, then you will have rainy season or monsoon, whatever you call it, and then again you will have winter season, and again winter will be followed by summer season. And this period between summer and winter you have autumn. Now here not all the time you have rain, but autumn includes some months of rain. So that's how the season changes. Now, as I said, that there are crops which have different climatic requirements. Some plants grow well in some season. Therefore, the productivity of some plants are more in some particular season. So if you take example, let us suppose plants like maize, soybean, sugarcane, they need more water for their cultivation, whereas plants like rice, potato, they need less water. So these are examples. For example, if you take example of rice, potato, so these type of plants, they need less water, whereas if you take examples of maize or sugarcane, so these plants need more water. So the requirements of water, the requirement of sunlight, everything varies from plant to plant. So if there are plants which needs more water, so it is better to grow them in rainy season, because in rainy season they will get more water. If there are plants which need less water but they need more sunlight, so it is better to grow them during summer season. So depending upon the requirement of the crops, they should be grown during different seasons. Similarly, mostly green plants need sunlight because they perform photosynthesis in presence of sunlight. Again, some vegetables and pulses, for them the suitable season is summer season, when there is too much of light, not a lot of rain, so that kind of climate is more suitable. So here you can see that you have crops like this maize. Here you can see maize, soybean, sugarcane. So these are some of the plants which need more water. So that means it will be a wise decision to grow these type of plants during rainy season, because there the water availability is more. On the other hand, if you take examples of plants like this, for example, gram, wheat or pea, for example, here this is wheat, this is pea, this is gram. So for these type of plants, they need less water. So maybe for such plants, what can be done is they can be grown during a season when there is less water. So depending upon the requirement of the plants, they can be grown in different seasons. Now based upon these cropping patterns, these different cropping patterns, there are two types or two categories of crops. One is called kharif crops, the other is called rabi crops. So the first type, that is kharif crops. These crops are grown in rainy season. So rainy season, lot of rain, that is lot of water. So the plants which need more water, for example, soya bean, sugar cane, maize, these are the examples of plants which need more water. Therefore, they are grown in rainy season and they are called kharif crops. The second category of crops are rabi crops. These rabi crops are those which are grown in winter season because they need less water. They do not want more water. But at the same time, they do not want too much of sunlight as well. Because you might say that, okay, if they want less water, they could have been grown in summer season as well. But in summer season, the weather is too hot. So not all plants favor so much of hot climate. So these plants do not want a lot of water, but at the same time, they do not want a very hot climate. So therefore, these plants like wheat, gram and pea, they are grown during winter season and they are called rabi crops. However, there are some plants like mostly the vegetables and the pulses which are also grown in summer season. So normally these kharif crops, they are grown during this period from June to September. So this is the period between summer season and winter season, whereas the rabi crops are grown somewhere around November to March. So peak winter starts from December, but then again November also the weather becomes quite cold. So November to March is suitable for the rabi crops. So now the question is, we got to know that okay, agriculture is very important, cultivation is also equally important. Question is, who cultivates the crops for the entire population? Because very few of us grow our crops ourselves. So now when each of us do not take this responsibility of cultivating our own crops, then who is doing this for us? Yes, the farmers are doing this excellent job for all of us. So the farmers, they take a lot of pain to cultivate the crops on a commercial scale to meet the demand of the entire human population. Now, they have to follow a lot of techniques so that they can increase the crop productivity to meet the needs of the increasing population. They need to ensure that the crops which are being produced, they do not contain any sort of contamination by insects or pests. So they have to ensure a proper and a perfect cultivation of crop. So here now we are going to see what exactly or how exactly the farmers, they follow special techniques to ensure better crop productivity. Now I'm sure when you would have visited the village in your last vacation, you would have seen the farmers there on the green vast fields, either pulling either on their tractors or plowing or planting trees or maybe sowing seeds. So doing one of these activities, you would have definitely seen them on their fields. They use various tools to shape the soil, to control insects, pests or weeds, to clear the soil, to mix various stuffs together to create manures and fertilizers. So you would have seen them doing any of these activities on the field. So now we are going to talk about the agricultural practices. So what are the various practices that should be followed for crop production? So these are the various tasks performed by a farmer for crop production. Now crop production isn't that simple as the name looks to be. It is not about just growing one plant, or it is not just about growing 10 plants or 20 plants. It is about growing thousands of plants on a big field. So we need to ensure a lot of things. We need to ensure that when we are putting in so much of effort to plant those crops, so we have to ensure that the productivity is also good, because if the productivity is not good, our entire effort for the entire year goes to a waste. So there are several tasks which are to be performed in a particular sequence for better crop production. So what are the various agricultural practices? Preparation of soil, sowing adding manure and fertilizers, irrigation, protecting from weeds, harvesting, storage. So these are some of the agricultural practices followed by farmers. So now what we are going to do is we are going to talk about each of these practices in detail, that what happens under each practice. For example, the first one is going to be preparation of soil.
I hope you found this video useful. In the next video, we are going to talk about soil preparation in detail. So stay tuned.